think it's time that we begin. So hi guys, I am Yashi from MyCaptain and I welcome all of you to this super amazing webinar that we're organizing today in collaboration with Qfuss. And thanks a lot to the Qfuss team for arranging for such amazing speakers for all of us. And here we have the speaker of the evening, Priyankar Kumar with us. Hi Priyankar, how are you?
I am fine. How are you? Hello,
Great,
can you hear
great.
me? Can anyone hear me?
Sorry, what?
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So hi Priyankar, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Perfect. So let's begin with the session, Priyankar, and let's begin with the one question that all of us want to know about you. Tell us something about yourselves, your educational background, and about your career right now.
Sure. Hi, I'm Priyankar. I currently work as a software engineer at Microsoft. I joined around a year back. I did my BTech in computer science from Manipal Institute of Technology. I'm a pass out of the year 2019. And prior to joining Microsoft, I've done a few internships in a couple of startups. I worked in a couple of startups, and I've also interned in a few academic institutions like IIIT Hyderabad and DRDO. So that's my background mainly.
Okay. So you are currently a software engineer at Microsoft, right? So tell us more about your experience working with the organization.
Microsoft is a great place to work at for anyone who is interested in computer science and technology. We have a great culture here where you get to work with some of the brightest minds in the country. We have a very diverse set of people who we work with as a team, people from all across India, from some of the best colleges and from different states. The diversity, and also we have this culture where we emphasize a lot on growth mindset, right? So the whole idea behind growth mindset is that you don't have to be someone who is a know-it-all. You have to be someone who is a learn-it-all. Basically, you need to be able to adapt. You need to be able to learn, and you need to be able to take up challenges. So that's what really excites me about my career here. And apart from that, you also have a lot of perks and benefits of working at Microsoft. But that is secondary to the nature of the job itself, which is being able to work on some of the latest technologies and being able to build products. Like we have a really cool mission statement, which is empowering every person and organization on the planet to do more. So that's the best thing that I like about working here.
Okay, so you're mentioning about your nature of your job. So tell us more about it. What are your roles and responsibilities exactly?
Yes. So as a software engineer, different companies tend to have different set of requirements for what they expect from a software engineer. But at Microsoft, in my current role, I'm working as a full stack developer. And as a software engineer, your work starts with first identifying, so what happens is when you're building a product, you have a set of customers, right? So you need to figure out what are the requirements. So that is typically done by a different role, which is a product manager or a program manager. And they act as an interface between the customer and the software developers. So as a software developer, you need to talk to your product manager firstly and figure out what exactly are the requirements. You need to ask a lot of questions. You need to clarify each and every detail. Once that is done, you then try to look at technical design. Even before you start coding, right? You need to figure out how is an application going to look like. And so you discuss with your teammates. There are a lot of discussions, a lot of meetings. You discuss how exactly you're going to solve the particular problem. Once that is done, you come to the actual coding, where you basically have to write clean, maintainable code. And this is you also have to participate in code reviews, where you check out other people's code and you tell them that, hey, this is not done the right way. Do this. Once that is done, typically in other companies, you have a different role for testing, but in Microsoft, the testing as well is done by the programmer himself. And you have to basically write unit tests, functional tests, and all those things. And then you also have to handle the production deployment, right? You deploy it and then you make it available to the user. And once that is done, so in any software program, you also try to collect a lot of metrics, right? Hey, this is how the performance metrics, the usage metrics. So all of that information gets logged. And so it's also your job as a programmer to look at all those logs and figure out any kind of problems or issues that are being faced by customers in production. So that is something that you also need to keep track of. And then you close the whole feedback loop by using all that data to inform your product manager that, hey, these are the trends that we are seeing, these are user patterns we are seeing. So that helps your product manager as well figure out that, hey, these are some of the things, some of the features that we should probably be looking at to enhance the user experience. So an end-to-end job involves a lot of different things, and you have to you need to be able to wear a lot of different hats. You need to be able to discuss with your teammates. You need to be able to think of design. You need to be able to think of testing, deployment. Then you need to be able to look at the data and then figure out what are the other features, what are some of the features which we should probably be having in our product, so that so that it makes for a better user experience. So
Right,
that's the
right.
flow.
So other than this role, you've also interned at Voice First as a software developer intern, right? And
Yeah.
VoiceCube as a voice developer for apps like Alexa and Google Assistant. So
Yeah,
can you tell us about your roles and responsibilities with these projects and how it was different from your current role?
certainly. So it was in the year 2017 when Alexa actually came to India. So, you need to first understand what exactly Alexa development means, right? So if you look at the history of human computer interactions, right? So we started off by having these kind of like like text mode of interacting with computers, where you had to memorize a lot of different commands, and then you would type something onto a terminal to get a computer to do something. Then we moved on to what are called the graphical user interfaces, or GUIs, that we have today, where you press a button or you click on something and then something happens on your computer. So that's the way we are following now. But since 2014ish, 2012ish, since Siri came along, there has been this trend towards where we are trying to think of being able to talk to computers and getting things done. And that is what the future is going to look like. So that's where Alexa comes in. So my journey with Alexa started in the year 2017. So even before it had launched in India, I just came across this ad on Facebook where they were giving a free developer T-shirt for making an Alexa app. So that's how I got started. I built an app. I got a free T-shirt. I was like very happy because all developers they love goodies. They love getting free swag. So I was one of those. And then at that time when Alexa had just launched in India, Amazon used to conduct a lot of monthly competitions that, hey, develop this app for this particular theme, and the best apps get a prize, like you get a free Echo Dot. So when they launched in India, they did that, and I was one of the first winners of that. And that got me really, really interested and excited. Like you're able to build something, you're able to talk to something, and you're able to get it to do something for you, and you're able to actually develop products. And that got me really, really excited. And I was I used to post a lot of my apps on social media like Facebook and Twitter and all these different places. So when I used to post on Facebook, so there was this company called Voice First. So they were one of the first, when Amazon launched Alexa in India, they needed some Indian partners to help build the app. So they were one of the, they are one of the official partners of Amazon, where they get them to build some of the apps. So one of the founders of that startup, he noticed one of my works and he just pinged me that, hey, can you join us for an internship? We really like your work. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So that's how I got my first internship at Voice First. And there I developed a lot of different apps. I developed games. I used to really enjoy developing apps for Alexa. So I developed a lot of different games, and we were also working on a product for the hospitality sector. So I contributed to their product. And after Voice First, then I moved over to VoiceCube. When I moved over to VoiceCube, I had already gotten an offer from Microsoft, so I just wanted to work on the side and continue my passion for Alexa and voice development. So I worked with VoiceCube on the side, like it was like a part-time job. Like I used to do whatever. I used to finish my classes, get home, and I used to get working on their projects. And at VoiceCube also, I got to work on a lot of different projects for different clients. Like they were also developing apps for, they also had their own products, but they were mainly at that time developing products for external clients. So I got to build a lot of different apps for them. So that's
Okay.
the journey.
Wow, that's very interesting. So a lot of our students are from the CAC department and they want to build their career ahead in this field. So can you tell us about the different kinds of jobs that are in the industry and how they can branch into those jobs?
Yeah. So right now is a very good time to be in computer science because there's a whole variety of things that you can get into, right? So as a software engineer, you're not limited to any particular kind of like a role, right? If you're interested in mobile apps, then you have Android development, iOS development. If you're into web development, you have front end development roles. Front end means you're developing the UI UX, and on the or you can get into the backend side, which is you're basically working with servers, databases, and all those things. Then you have this whole new kind of technologies which are coming up. For example, Alexa and Google Assistant, like voice tech, bots. Like basically they are bots at the end of the day. Then you have AI ML roles where you get to work on artificial intelligence algorithms, machine learning, big data. That's
Right.
another area, the data side of things. So those are the roles that you can target as a software engineer. But apart from software engineer, you also have some other parallel roles. In many companies, you have this role called site reliability engineer, where you get to work on DevOps. DevOps is basically handling all the deployments, trying to look at all the performance of your different services, ensuring that nothing is down in production. That is a site reliability engineer role. Then you also have a testing role, SDET. In Microsoft, the software engineer handles the testing part as well as the site reliability part these days. Earlier, we used to have these roles, but in a lot of different companies, those roles are available. And then you have of product management roles as well. In India, typically those roles go to people who have an MBA, but if you look at other countries, software engineers also, a lot of, if you're from a good college, you get to play the role of a product manager. And a product manager is basically a person who who sits between the external customer and the software engineer, and it's a product manager's job to talk to the customer, figure out the set of requirements, and then translate it back to software engineers so that we can start working on the some of those features. And it's also their job to prioritize which features should come first, that kind of a stuff. So if you're interested in that area, you should be looking at product management. Then you also have data scientists, data engineering roles. If you're someone who's really interested in big data, AI, ML, all these things, you should try to look at those roles. But a lot of those roles, at least in India, require you to have a master's, though that's changing slowly. But typically those roles go to people who have a master's or a PhD. And yeah, there are plenty of roles. And if you're someone who's really interested in talking to people, right? You don't have to be a software engineer who just sits behind a computer and codes all day. You don't have to do that. There are roles. It's called developer relations. So you can become something like a developer advocate or a developer evangelist, where you get to travel around different states, different countries, and you get to talk to developers about your about whatever technology you're trying to sell to them, right? So that's also a pretty interesting area. So there are like whole bunch of roles that you can target as someone who's working in technology.
Right. Okay. So now I want to ask, what are the skills that are required to be a hacker?
Hacker, I hope you mean hacker of the right kind. I mean, do you mean something like a person who builds stuff, right? So a hacker is someone who, like we say in Hindi, jugaad, like a person who knows how to do jugaad. So you need to know how to do jugaad to be a good hacker. But to be a hacker who likes to participate in hackathons and things like that, you don't need any special skills. Maybe you just need some maybe skills to have free food and network with people. So that's what hackathons are mainly about. And then you also get the opportunity to try new technologies and things like that. You don't need any special skills for that. Hackathons are a good way of like exploring something which is out of what you learn in college. You get to try out different technologies. You get to meet a lot of different people, network with people. So like if you like a good way to know people in the industry is through hackathons. and then you get to build stuff. You also get to present stuff. So as a software engineer, it's not just like, as any person, like not just software engineers, any profession, it's not just about doing the job. You also have to present it. You have to show it to people. Only then it adds, you have to present it in a way that shows people what value you're adding, right? So that also is a very good, hackathons are a good way of like getting to learn stuff, have free food, of course, but getting to learn stuff, meeting new people, and having a lot of fun. That's what hackathons are all about.
Okay, okay. So you have any advice or pro tips for someone who wants to get into this field, not just hacking, but the technology field in general?
Yeah. So the technology field in general, the pro tips. So when I look back at my journey, I think the biggest pro tip would have been, if you're someone who's doing computer science, right? You're going to be learning a lot of these different subjects: data structures, algorithms, operating systems, database, DBMS, database management systems. So all of these things are very, very important for your role. Even though it might seem like, hey, college is seeming like a waste of time, but all those subjects, they form the foundation upon which a lot of the things are built upon, right? So what happens is, like as a college, when I was in college, I used to, I used to try learning like all these frameworks and tools and things like that. Like instead of focusing on the fundamentals, I was trying to focus on abstractions which are built upon the fundamentals. And I think that was a mistake. Okay. Because technology is going to change really fast. If you look at something like, for example, I'll just give you an example. If you look at front end technologies, right? In 2013, people were talking about this JavaScript library called jQuery. Okay. And then a couple of years back, we had React. And then today we are talking about some different technology. We're talking about Vue and some other libraries. So the thing is, libraries and frameworks and tools, these are just going to come and go. Okay. And the only thing that's going to remain constant is the fundamentals on which those were built. So if you're in college, try to focus on the fundamentals, try to understand it well. On the side, you can always try to explore all these different areas. It's really good because it gives you perspective of what this industry is all about. There are a lot of different options, and the best way to figure out what will work for you is to actually go and try some of these things out, but do that on the side. Don't forget that the fundamentals are going to matter the most in any interview, any technical interview you go to. You're going to be, even if I go to an interview tomorrow, no one is going to ask me about Alexa or Google Assistant or whatever. Then nobody is going to ask me about front end or whatever. The first round is always going to be a data structures and algorithms round. So I would recommend that if you are really interested in technology, first learn the fundamentals, get your fundamentals clear, and then also on the side, try to explore some of these technologies in whatever field interests you, because there are a lot of things in technology. You have mobile app development, you have websites, you have all these different kind of applications. So choose whatever works for you. Do one of those and do the other one, but don't forget your fundamentals. That's the pro tip that I would like to give to anyone who is really interested in technology.
Okay, okay. So can you tell us about the projects that you took up while you were in college? Some kind of projects that can help mentees build their resumes.
Yeah. So projects are a good way of exploring different technologies. So as I mentioned, I was really involved in Alexa. So I built a lot of Alexa skills, both as a part of hackathons and as actual products. Apart from that, I was also involved in Android development initially. When I was in my second year, I built this app. So the idea behind the app was actually the idea for the app came from when I was working on a different hackathon project. I couldn't find a technical solution for what I was trying to do. So I built an app for it and I just open sourced it. And the beauty of like when you build something, right, don't just build it and push the code somewhere. Actually deploy it. Like make sure that, because it takes what, like if you want to release an Android app on the Play Store, it just costs you $25. At least it costed me that when I was back in second year. I don't know about how much it costs now. If you're building a website, deploy it. So that's what I did. So I built an Android app and I just put it on the Play Store. So the thing was, I didn't expect anything out of it. I just put it on the Play Store. But then I started getting a lot of emails, like a lot of different people from all across the world started emailing me, hey, I really like your app. Can you add this feature? Can you add that feature? And someone wanted to use it in their, some teacher somewhere in Sweden wanted to use it in her classroom. And I was like, okay, I will do that. And she said, make it a paid app so that I can get people to, buy the app instead of just having it for free. So I made a paid version of the app and I was able to earn some money out of it. Even though it was just a hobby project, it turned into something that turned into a small source of income. It's not like earning like thousands of dollars or something, but it is earning me something. So yeah, so try to think of something, if so there are two ways around it, right? One way of showing technical skills is you can always try to clone some well-known project. Like a lot of people build these Twitter clones, Instagram clones, whatever. You can try doing that, or try to get innovative. Who knows, you might end up with a startup. You might end up building something that might, help a lot more people, might be really innovative, and you could potentially turn it and spin it off into a startup. So the best way, and the other way to do projects is, which I personally feel I should have done a lot more, is you have a lot of coursework, right? You have operating system subjects, you have database management system subjects. Try to build projects related to your courses. A lot of good colleges already have some courses, some projects for each of these different subjects. But what typically happens is a lot of students just try to copy paste from somewhere, or they try to get it off from some other senior or something like that. So that's not going to help you in any way. You're not learning anything. And if you go to an interview and say, hey, I built this website, and then I ask you a question about it, you won't be able to answer because you never really worked on it. So whatever you do, try to do it with sincerity and honesty, and try to see if you can build something innovative that's really cool, and try to deploy it, get it somewhere, get it out there. All the Alexa skills I built, I put it out there, and that really helped me learn. If you're building products in college, the best part is you get to learn a lot about your customers. Like every review, every feedback that you get, that can help you become a better product developer, a better software engineer. So I would suggest try to think of something innovative. If you're not able to think of something innovative, you can always clone, but whatever you do, try to deploy it and never copy, never cheat. That doesn't help anyone.
Right, right. So now that we're talking about projects, I would like to move on to internships. So what are the kind of internships that students in college should apply to if they're interested in this field, and how to approach to those organizations?
So internships is actually a very broad category. There are different people try to do different kinds of internships. First of all, it all depends upon your career goals, right? So if you're someone who wants to get into a master's program or something like that, I would suggest that you go for a research internship. Try to reach out to some of the professors in some of the good institutions in our country. You have IITs, Triple IT, BITS. Reach out to some of those professors, and they will involve you in their work. And the end result of those kind of internships should ideally be some sort of a paper, right? Write a paper, some research work, something like that. On the other end of the spectrum, you have two. If you really wanted to get into development, you can go two ways. One way is you can approach startups. So startups typically look for people who already have some experience with the tech stack, right? So they tend to look at someone. Suppose some startup is trying to build a website, they'll try to look for some particular skills. They're going to be very skill specific. They're going to try to look for, hey, does this guy know JavaScript? Or if they're looking for Android development, they'll check whether you know Kotlin or Java or not, right? So the best way to do that is build a project, right? Build a side project, which suppose I am someone who's interested in website development. So I would try to build some sort of a project which shows all those skills, which I'm really interested in working at. And I would put that on my resume. And then I would send that to someone who's hiring from that startup. The best way to approach people is through LinkedIn, or if you're not on LinkedIn, you should be on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter if you're a student or a professional, everyone should be on LinkedIn, because that's where much of the recruitment happens. And I would try to reach out to people there, and I would apply through that. You can also look at a lot of Facebook groups these days. I personally found the startups that I interned at through Facebook. Facebook is also a good medium to reach out to people. You can join a lot of the groups. There are a lot of tech specific groups on Facebook. Like for Alexa development, we have a group. And you can actually connect with a lot of people from the industry, even on Facebook. A lot of people tend to think that Facebook is a waste of time, but I found that Facebook was actually really helpful in being able to connect with a lot of people in the industry. And then you have the other kind of internships, which are usually in MNCs. So these companies, right, like Microsoft, Amazon, all these companies, they don't really care that much about your very specific kind of like skills, right? They're looking for more general skills, because they expect you to be learning a lot of their tech stacks on the job, because a lot of these companies have their own very specific kind of a tech stack, in-house kind of like a tech stack. So that so for those kind of things, you should probably focus a lot more on algorithms, data structures, all those things. And if those companies come to your college, then they will be grilling you on all those subjects. If they don't come, then you need to look at again, you need to look at LinkedIn and reach out to some of the recruiters, try to get a referral from someone. That's the way it how it happens.
Okay, okay. So tell us something about the tools and software that you use in the industry.
So there is no specific kind of, there's no one tool that is used, right? It's in software engineering, you have a vast variety of programming languages, you have a vast variety of tools, right? So in my current role, I am working with, since I'm a full stack developer, I'm working with some of the stack which is related to that, which is basically on the front end, we use React.js, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, all those things. And then on the back end, we are using Node.js. We have some projects with ASP.NET. Then on version control, we use Git, right? And then for the CI/CD stuff, we use Azure DevOps. And then for the deployment, there are a lot of different cloud technologies. We use a lot of these Azure services to host all our like where all our infrastructure is, where we host all of our different components of our application. So there's no one tech stack anywhere. When I was working with Alexa, it was something different. All the hosting used to happen on AWS. When I was working with Google Assistant, there was a different tech stack. So it depends upon what technology you're using, what problem you're trying to solve. So your tech stack is going to depend upon the problem you're trying to solve. If you're someone who is doing who wants to get into mobile development, you'll have to probably look at Java, Kotlin, these kind of languages. If you're someone who's trying to do web development, again, in web development, you have front-end development and back-end development. In front-end development, mostly you have to learn JavaScript in some form or the other. But if you're interested in back-end, you again have a wide variety of languages like Python. You have different languages, Python, Node.js. You can use JavaScript as well on the back-end. So yeah, there's like and if you're interested in data science, you're interested in all those AI, ML, deep learning, that kind of stuff, then you should probably focus on Python, because that's what is used for most of the packages and stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so that was about the tools and software. Now, some programming languages that you're using.
Personally, I've been using, as I spoke about, I'm mainly using JavaScript. Most of my work is in JavaScript. We have something called TypeScript. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. And then we also have .NET, basically C#. And then, yeah, mainly these are the languages we are using. But as I said, like it depends upon the requirements, and sometimes I even have to deal with something like Scala for some of the big data stuff. So yeah, there's no like one thing, one size fits all. Depending upon the problem, our tech stack might change a little.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. So tell us something about the apps or the websites or some courses, certification that you would recommend for the mentees, so that they can get good insight in the field.
Okay. So I'm not a huge fan of any of the certificates or courses just for the sake of getting a certificate. A lot of people try to just get a certificate and they put it on LinkedIn, and then they think that that's the end of the world. The certificate is actually the starting point for you to do something with all that knowledge, right? So whatever you have learned, try to build a project out of it. That would be much more helpful, because these days almost nearly every other person has a certificate, and you don't need to pay thousands of dollars. There are a lot of free resources available. So for example, when I was in second year, I used to use, there's this website called Free Code Camp. Okay. So these people give you free, they have like around thousands of hours of content. You can just go through all the exercises and stuff, and in the end you get a certificate as well. But the good part is you get to practice those. It's not a video kind of lecture. It's like text based, where they'll give you a problem, they'll ask you to code the solution, and then you keep practicing and you come to the end. But if you look at certifications, some companies do try to emphasize on some of the certifications related to cloud, like you have Azure certifications, AWS certifications. If you can get those, that's good. But I wouldn't recommend you spending thousands of dollars on any kind of certifications. Instead, try to build a project, deploy it somewhere, let people see the project, put it on your resume. That will add much more value. Like what happened was in my Microsoft interview, I messed up my first round. Like it didn't go as well as expected. But I had mentioned to my interviewer that I have some Android, I have developed some Android apps and they are on the Play Store. So he actually took his phone out to check those out. And like he was really impressed by those. So even though I slightly messed up that round, he still let me go to the next round. So actually being able to show and showcase your projects. And if you're someone, you should also try to make a GitHub account. So a GitHub account is where you host all your open source projects so that other people can actually see your code if they're interested in. So try to do all those things. Try to make a GitHub account. Whatever you build, try to deploy it somewhere so that other people can use it. That's a much better way of showing your value. And then you can always try you can always try some of these programs, right? Like all these companies have these programs, like Microsoft has this Microsoft student partners. Amazon used to have Amazon programs. So you can try to be a part of those clubs and things like that. They might give you some of the certificate which shows your leadership skills, because in your job it's not just about programming, it's also about your soft skills, and those programs try to help you with that. Personally, I was a Amazon Alexa student influencer. So where I used to talk to all the students in my college about Alexa, is to teach them how to develop apps for voice. So that really helped me with my speaking skills and learning how to interact with people. So you can try for some of those programs. And also on the internships, I forgot to mention that if you're really interested in internships, you should also check out something like Google Summer of Code and some of these programs which are run by large companies where they pay you a very healthy stipend. Like I think Google Summer of Code, in my time, it used to pay $3,000 for you to work on open source projects. That will really help your GitHub profile. So I would not recommend you spending thousands of dollars on Coursera, all those places. I would instead, you can spend money there. That's a good idea, but try to use that knowledge somewhere, like try to build a project or something like that, which will be much more helpful for your profile than just a mere certificate, which doesn't really indicate anything about your programming abilities.
Right, right. That was very, very informational, Priyankar. And that's about my questions. Before we move to Menti questions, I'd like to drop this feedback form in the chat box. Guys, please fill the feedback form and let us know how the session is and what other kind of sessions we can organize for you. Now, moving on with the Menti questions. So we'll take up one by one. Okay, Drupal is asking, what kind of internships does the product-based company looks for?
What kind of internships does I can repeat that question?
Yeah, what kind of internships does a product-based company look for?
So there is no specific kind of like a requirement that you have to get a certain kind of an internship. So all of that is just a resume screener. And in the end, what is going to matter for most of the product companies is how well you perform on the algorithms and data structure rounds. Okay. So there's nothing like very specific. So I would instead suggest that you try to figure out what kind of interests you have, and you try to get some experience in that area. That would be much better.
Okay. So if someone is a student of electronics engineering.
Hello, your voice is breaking.
Engineering student wants to become a software engineer. Is that possible, and how to do that?
Yeah, that is possible. So I have a lot of friends who are electronic and communication engineers and who are working with me in the same role. So the thing is, a lot of those people, right? They have done a lot of competitive coding. They had a very good competitive coding profile. They have really practiced their algorithms and data structures, and then they also had a few projects, right? Try to show some of your software projects on a resume. That will help you get through the resume screening round. And after that, it's all about your data structures, algorithms, how well you know your fundamentals and stuff. So that's the way. So you'll have to first try to get some skills, try to get skilled in a programming language, build some projects out to help your resume. And then once you have a good resume, it'll the resume will only get you through the first round, through the resume screener round. After that, it's all about how well you answer in the interviews, and that's all about all the fundamentals. So you'll have to start practicing on all these platforms, like you have Lead Code, Geeks for Geeks, all these platforms. You need to start practicing on the data structures and algorithms, and try to get a referral. That will be much more helpful.
Okay, okay. If I want to get in any specific company, then should I work on the skills that are required in that specific company, or should I work on all the things, since there are a lot of them?
Suppose Microsoft, when it interviews, so even though we have a very specific tech stack, we are not, you're not going to be asked anything related to what tech stack you'll be using. You will be learning all of that on the job, right? I would not even suggest that you try to, like I mentioned, like try to focus on the fundamentals. Try to learn one programming language. If you do some projects on the side, but first try to get your fundamentals right. Learn one of the programming languages, C++, Java, and whatever you prefer, and practice a lot of algorithms and data structures on all these different platforms. You have Lead Code, Geeks for Geeks, all these different places. Get good with that. If you can, try for competitive coding as well. That is not something which I did, but I practiced a lot on the other platforms. For competitive coding, you can try something like Code Chef. You have Hacker Earth, HackerRank. So try all of those things. If you're good at the fundamentals, right, you can easily clear any of the interviews. The projects are something that you do on the side, which enhances which differentiates you from some of the other people who have also done a lot algorithms, data structures, and all those things. But without doing any of the basics, it's not a good idea to try to learn something else, something like because you may not be in the end working on that particular tech stack in the place that you work for, unless you're working at a startup. If you want to work at a startup, then yes, you should start looking at, suppose I want to be a Android developer. So for that, I would try to look at the tech stack for Android development is something like Java, Kotlin, all these kind of programming language. So I would try to get good at that. And then I would try to apply for some of those positions in the startups. In startups, they don't care about your data structures and algorithms, but in many of the startups, at least, because they're looking for people with those skills. But if you come to some of the companies where they're looking for more general skills, because the tech stack can change, and like you might get to work on something totally different from what your skills are presently. That's what you're required to have a growth mindset. You're required to keep learning, because things are going to change. So it's of no use trying to do so many things together. Just focus on the fundamentals. That's the advice that I would give, especially to students.
Okay, okay. So Amenti is asking, when did you start coding?
I'm not sure what exactly you mean by coding as such, because I started coding way back when I was in 9th grade. If you're asking but some people try to refer to coding as doing these data structures, algorithms kind of questions. So if you're referring to that, I started in my 2nd year. That's when I was introduced to all these subjects. But actual coding had already begun when I was in 9th standard. I went to a school where we were taught C++ in 9th grade itself. And then in 12th, 11th, 12th also I had taken PCMC. So that also really helped me. I already knew some of the stuff that they were teaching in the first year of college. But the actual data structures, algorithms, I started in 2nd year. But I got quickly bored of that, and I was focusing on a lot of projects and stuff like that. And what happened was, when I was in my 3rd year, and when Microsoft came for our internship round, I actually failed. I was not even able to solve, we had in the first round, you have this online round where you have to solve problems. And it is like, I was only able to get one question. I was not able to solve the other two because I was so confused with the syntax, right? Because just before that, I'd done an internship somewhere where I was working with Python. And then and on the online platform, which Microsoft was using at the time, the options were C, C++, and Java. And I got really confused with the syntax. And I was able to solve only one problem. So then for 4th year, what I did was, even though I interned at a place, I also made sure that I started from the basics. I spent at least 3 months preparing for my Microsoft interview. I started from the basics of C++, because that's the language I was the most comfortable with. I started there, and then I worked on Lead Code, Geeks for Geeks, all these different platforms. I tried to solve a lot of different problems, and that helped me in the cracking the interview rounds.
Okay, okay. Um, so I'm presently in electrical and electronics engineering branch. Okay, I'm sorry, this question is done. Yeah, so how do high school students get internships in India?
High school students can get internships, but I don't think any of the big companies like Amazon, Microsoft, etc. try to hire high school students in India. But I think the best bet for you would be to write to some startup, or some of those folks might like to hire someone from high school who has some of the skills that they require. So your best bet would be to write to someone on LinkedIn. But to be honest, I don't really have an answer for that.
Okay, okay. So how much use is learning Python or C++, and how will it affect my work? Samira is asking.
How will it affect my
Work.
work? Okay. So, see, as I said, try to for your data structures and algorithms, right? Try to focus on one language and try to get really good at it. So that's one of the mistakes that I personally made when I was in my third year, and I was not able to crack the internship because I just got too confused with all the different syntax. So I would suggest select one of C, C++, and Java for the sake of safety, because some of these companies still insist on you using one of these three. Those a lot of companies are slowly opening up to Python. And so if I could do something differently, what I would do is I would learn one programming language, and I would learn one scripting language. One programming language like C++, C, or Java, where I would try to practice as much as I can on the algorithms and data structures. And one scripting language like Python or JavaScript, which can help you build some really cool projects. You can do a lot of cool stuff with Python. Like if you're really interested in building projects and things like that, Python and JavaScript are like really good bets. So learn one programming, one scripting. Use one of those languages for your projects, and focus on one language for practicing your data structures and algorithms. That would be really helpful. That's my advice.
Okay, right, right. So how much math is required to get into this field?
Actually, not much, to be honest. I mean, you don't really use anything too complicated like calculus or something like that in your day-to-day job. You just need to know the basics, addition, subtraction, multiplication, which anyway, any educated human being should be knowing already. So there's nothing like this is not, though you do have a few courses in college where they try to teach you things like discrete maths and things like that. So unless you're really interested in one of those areas, math heavy areas, which are things like, artificial intelligence, deep learning, all those areas where you're going to require a lot of things like linear algebra and things like that, you don't really require that much if you just want a development job. If you're really interested in data science, then you might require a lot of statistics, probability, and all those things. So it totally depends upon which area you're interested in. But if you're just interested in a normal software engineering role where you're required to write code, develop applications, it's more about thinking in terms of the design of those applications. What are the components? Being able to, object-oriented programming is taught in colleges. So a lot of those things are more important than actual maths.
Okay. So is MS or MTech required after BTech?
Nothing is required as such. There are a lot of people who don't even get a computer science degree, and they still end up working in places like Microsoft, Google, and all these places. It all depends upon what are your interests. If you're really interested in research, if you're really interested in getting into a field like data science, deep learning, all of those things, then probably you should try to look at an MTech or an MS and then a PhD, because a lot of these companies still have these requirements. But even that is slowly changing. A lot of these companies are becoming more open to others.
Okay. So is getting a hacker rank certification very useful?
I don't have one, and don't consider certifications to be really useful at all. It's more about what you do with that knowledge. As I mentioned previously, try to build projects, try to do those things. That will be much more helpful. and that will add more value to it, to your resume than some paid certifications from elsewhere.
Okay. Okay. Do the companies look for people that who can make websites without coding?
So I'll tell you, right? So the thing is, software industry is a very vast industry, and there are a lot of people, a lot of developers who also make a living without coding. They try to use WordPress and things like that for the development, and but those people typically tend to be freelancers, right? If you're looking for a actual software engineering position, yes, there might be some instances where you can use a code less tool. There are a lot of tools which are coming up which don't require you to write any code at all to build even a mobile app these days, or even something like an Alexa skill is also can be built without coding using some of the platforms. So, but those are still pretty rare. And if you're really interested in doing that, you should try to look at freelancing. And I know a lot of people who are earning a lot of money by freelancing as well, right? But I don't think in any of the big companies where they require where the role is called software engineer, it's going to be a rarity rather than something which you're going to find to be common.
Okay. Okay. So Sagar is asking if you could suggest some sources where you can learn coding by yourself.
I would suggest Free Code Camp because it's free and it's like a lot of it's a lot of fun. You get to build real projects and you get a certificate at the end. So it's the best of all worlds. That's one
Okay.
of the resources I would recommend. And then for coding, algorithms and data structures, I would recommend something like Lead Code and Geeks for Geeks. So these three would be my top picks. And then you have Coursera, Udemy. If you're really interested in picking up some of the skills related to like website development, mobile development, whatever, Android development, you can look at Udemy where you can get a course for like $349. They always have these sales where they just give away courses for a very small amount of money.
Right. Okay. So how can we be a developer advocate who communicates like you said?
How to be a developer advocate is something that you should try getting a developer advocate on this platform for answering. So you can try getting someone who's doing that. I'm not really sure of what are the requirements, though I have a few friends who are doing it, and they all started off as software engineers, but then they found out that they didn't like sitting in front of a computer for too long, and they wanted to talk to people, talk to customers, and then they got into that. So it'll be better if that's answered by an actual developer advocate rather than me
Right.
as a software engineer with just 1 year of experience.
Right. Right. Okay. So Yogita is asking, could you tell us about the challenges that you faced in your journey and how you tackled them?
So I faced a lot of challenges. First of all, I failed IIT JEE. I was one of those people. And then I went to Manipal. And then initially, I didn't even think about engineering. My goal was to do something like a UPSC or something like that. I would have tried one of those things. And it was in my second year. I didn't even have a very good GPA in college until my third year or something like that, where I tried to improve my GPA to get it above 8. Otherwise, it was always below 8. So I just started randomly making apps. I tried a lot of different things. I went for internships, and then all these different experiences, they really helped me. But again, in my third year of college, I actually failed. Like we had a lot of companies coming for interviews and things like for hiring for internships and stuff. So I was not able to crack even one round because until then I was of the opinion that, hey, I already have a very strong resume where I have all these different projects and things like that. But I didn't realize that that in the end, you're just going to be judged on your algorithms and data structures. That's the reality of the industry. If tomorrow I have to go for an interview, I would have to again prepare for those basic subjects, and I'm not focused on those until then. Then in my fourth year, I had already gotten into Alexa development and things like that. So even though I was doing that on the side, also made sure that I try to get up to date on data structures, algorithms. I try to get good at C++ so that I could answer questions in the interviews. So in the end, yeah, it was a good journey. I learned a lot during my college days. I got to try out a lot of different technologies, and all of those things. Even though it was something that didn't at that time, it felt like a waste of time. Like all the mobile app that I made, I was like, why did I spend time on that? Instead of that, I could have just been doing something on Geeks for Geeks or something like that. But all of that actually ended up helping me get the role at Microsoft. So even though I didn't realize it at that time when I was doing those things and I felt it was a waste of time, it was not. So yeah, those my learning has been that to get good as a software engineer, you need to focus a lot on the fundamentals and all those things. And also you should do things on the side, because that really gives you a lot of perspective on how the industry works, and like being able to build something on your own, right, from scratch, and then being able to give it out to customers and being able to see, you learn a lot by doing that. If you're just interested in placements, then I would not even suggest all of these projects and stuff, because that's just something on your resume. In the actual interview, not a lot of interviewers care about what projects you have made. They just care about some dynamic programming or something like that. But if you're really interested in learning how to build software on your own, projects are some of the best ways, and try to deploy it somewhere. It might end up helping someone. You might get an email that will make you feel good, because at the end of the day, it's about how your job makes you feel, rather than all money and all can come later. If you're not fulfilled with your job, then it's of no point, no use in the end. Yeah, that was my answer. I can't hear you actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Great. Okay. So yeah, please tell us something about Google Summer Code, like you mentioned.
It's good to check out the site. You can just Google Google Summer of Code to know what it is all about. But it is just about so a lot of different open source projects. What Google does is they try to get students to contribute to those projects, and Google provides you stipend. When I was in college, it was $3,000. I was not able to clear it, but I had a good experience contributing to some of those. Did try contributing to some of those, but I was not very confident of getting through. So I never really even applied. I should have applied. That's one of the mistakes that I made. It's really a prestigious thing. And if you can go check it out. You can just Google Summer of Code and you can figure out what it's all about. But in the end, it's just about getting students to contribute to open source, and they give you Google provides you a very healthy stipend around 3,000. So you can spend your summer vacation writing code and getting paid for it.
Right. Okay. Can I learn data structures and algorithms in the final year?
Yeah, you can do like if you have enough time. There's no perfect time to be starting something, right? You can start today, you can start right now after this video. You can start learning. Just get onto one of the platforms, start coding. Start if you're unsure about the syntax, I would suggest that you first start with the language, whichever language you want to use in your actual interviews. In my case, it was C++, so I started by learning C++ again, going through all the standard STL, all those things. And then I came to actually solving problems on platforms like Lead Code and Geeks for Geeks.
Okay. So that's about the questions, Priyankar. Before we go, could you please drop your email ID or your LinkedIn address so that mentees can connect with you after the sessions?
Sure, I'll just give you my email address.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, drop in my LinkedIn. I think that'll be better. Just
Guys, meanwhile, Priyankar is dropping his address. Why don't you go ahead and fill the feedback form? That will be really helpful for us to decide the future sessions. And a big thank you to the Qfuss team for arranging such amazing webinars. You can visit them at www.qfuss.com.
Just a sec.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just a minute, and Priyankar will drop his email address.
Oh, I'm not able.
Yeah. You can drop your email address. It's okay.
Yeah, that's my LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, here Here's the LinkedIn profile. You can connect with Priyanka after the session. And thank you so much, Priyanka, for giving us this 1 hour. It was a very, very informational session, and I'm sure our mentees loved it. Thank you so much for coming and for this amazing session.
Thank you for having me on your webinar.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Great. So, mentees, we'll see you in the next session that we have tomorrow. Till then, take care. Have a good time. Bye-bye. Also, make sure that you fill the feedback form before you go. I'll drop in the link again. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.